You may want to meet me in the greeting line afterward. I can tell you a few things. He was as extraordinary back then as he is right now. And he and I started at the same time, but he's smarter than me, so they jumped him up a grade. And I'm still seeing a therapist about that. But Kevin, I remember the first time I saw you. Dr. Edward and I were sharing a cabin on a river cruise in Europe, and Edward brought out his telephone. He was like Skyping somebody, and he and I have known each other since 1992, so we have no secrets. And I leaned over, and that's when I saw you. But I saw Edward as he was seeing you, and I thought, oh, he's got it bad. And I knew in that moment I was going to have to pray for you every day for the rest of my life. And I have to tell you that I'm really moved that you're having a community-wide engagement party on the 8th of April, and I'm coming to that. You cannot keep me away. And so the rest of the service, please take note, and things about which I say that I get wrong or that you disagree with or that ruffles your feathers or upsets you in any way, please take it to Tuesday's lunch meetings with Edward in March. Because today we're looking at something called thin slicing. And thin slicing is a term that comes from Malcolm Gladwell's book called Blink. And I've read this section many times, and it seems like it's something we want to do, and seems like something we shouldn't do, and something we really want to master, and something we have to be very careful about. And while I was reading it, I was thinking of Glinda, the witch from the north. Don't you think that when you're reading Malcolm Gladwell? Because while I was reading it, I was thinking, are you a good witch or a bad witch? Is this thin slicing a good thing or not such a good thing? Is it something we really want to accomplish and master, or something that we want to avoid? I'll tell you a little bit about it, and I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But thin slicing, as I understand it, thin slicing is something that is used in the psychological and philosophical worlds, in which one takes a small slice of an occurrence, like a few seconds of an engagement or an interaction or an observation of something going on, and then draws conclusions or makes assessments. And they're showing that thin slicing is actually more effective than long-term observation. So let's say you happen to be in the business world and you're the person who's responsible for hiring or not hiring somebody. Thin slicing is when you might just take a few seconds of the interaction and you know immediately whether you're going to hire them or not hire them. Have any of you ever been married before? More than once? That was a question. It's one of those funny things about being on a stage like this. I'm talking with you, but really not with you, because you're not responding. You're I'm talking at you. Can you imagine if it was, hi, Jim and I are having lunch, and I said, hey, Jim, and Jim goes, have any of you been married more than once? Yes. Yeah? The point of why I'm asking you that is, whatever it was that led you to not being married anymore, didn't you already know that a long time ago? And many of us spend 10 years on spending, never mind. I can't even try to rescue that, so I'm just going to step right over it. Thin slicing is our ability to immediately assess, but the problem with this can be that our judgments and our biases and our prejudices get in the way. So we don't know if it's like the super plugged-in spiritual seeker that you are here at CSL Santa Rosa that is absolutely on target, aware, and plugged in and knows yep or nope, or if it's your biases, your prejudices, and your judgments that are in the way. So how? Are you a good witch or are you a bad witch? Do I want a thin slice or not want a thin slice? There is a Chinese proverb. Once upon a time, there was this farmer, and this farmer had a horse, and he would use this horse to help plow his field. And one day the horse ran away, and the townspeople said, "Oh, bad luck." And the farmer said, "Bad luck, good luck, who can say?" The next day, his horse returned with a whole harem of other horses. And the townspeople said, "Oh my God, that's amazing. Now you can sell some of the horses, keep them, and double your work. Good luck." And he said, "Good luck, bad luck, who can say?" The next day, one of the farmer's sons was trying to tame one of the horses. He fell off the horse and broke his leg. And the town people said, "Oh, bad luck." And the farmer said, "Bad luck, good luck, who can say?" And then the next day, the king came to the town to conscript all the eligible people for a war that the king was waging. And the king skipped the son with the broken leg. And the townspeople said, "Good luck." And the farmer said, "Good luck, bad luck, who can say?" Thin slicing, good witch, bad witch, who can say? You can say. This really is the ability for us to move through the world being aware of who we are and what we are and how we are, and to assess immediately that we're in the presence of a mighty power. See, if you and I really knew who we were, like if you knew who you were, you could not be afraid. It wouldn't be possible for you to be afraid if you really knew who you were. The Course in Miracles says that if you and I knew beside whom we walk, we would never be afraid. We wouldn't even be angry for any great deal of time because we would be called to move proactively, decisively, and effectively into action that's in alignment with who we are. So what I want to explore with you in the few minutes that we have together is I'd like to explore the idea of thin slicing, but based upon three ideas. One being, thin slicing is great if you have a foundation that is worthy of who you are. Two, thin slicing can be effective in the way you move through the world to cut through all the BS, belief system. When we know that thought is creative, however, I'll come back to that. And lastly, thin slicing can be something we could utilize effectively when we are utilizing this body temple, this physical machine, this earth suit, in the way for which it was designed to be used, being aware that actually Ernest Holmes says, the man who wrote the Science of Mind text, Ernest Holmes, in the very first chapter of the Science of Mind called The Thing Itself, in there it is written that the physical body is a necessary vehicle for consciousness. Necessary. And I dare say most of us have nothing nice to say about it. So those three things: foundation, thought is creative, and physicality. And that leads us to effectively use thin slicing so that we are plugged into our spiritual perspective and not just operating from our judgments and our biases. So, foundation. I was born and raised in East Los Angeles. And I'm one of 10 kids. And blue-collar family. Dad worked, mom was a stay-at-home mom. They practice witchcraft, clearly. I don't know how, and they sent us all to Catholic school. Like, how do you do that with my dad's income? It's magic. And they also, we'd go camping every weekend. And we had a little trailer. It was like a Santa Fe trailer. And my mother would pull it behind a 1972 Chevrolet Monte Carlo with all of us piled in. Clearly not enough seat belts, but it was a different era. And at the backside of this trailer that we would go camping in every weekend was a door that would pull down. And the door was only about that tall and was about that wide. And when you opened the door, what you should have seen in there was a spare tire for the trailer. But my mother removed it because that was a good spot for her to collect and stash rocks. Okay? Now, before you project into a story I'm not telling, we never needed the spare tire, so it doesn't matter. But the point is, my dad didn't want my mom collecting rocks, not unlike Ricky and Lucy Ricardo in the long trailer. I'm not making this up. My mother literally would stash rocks. So in East LA, and the house at which I was raised, all of the flower beds were beautifully lined with rocks from all over the place. It was just lovely. And there came a time when my parents sold that house and they retired in Pendleton, Oregon. And there were no rocks in my mother's flower bed. And by then my father knew what my mother had been doing. And so they made this agreement that the rocks would not be moving with them. But after a few years, my brothers and sisters and I would go visit my mom and dad, and I noticed that all of a sudden their flower beds were lined with rocks. And so I asked her in the presence of my father, "Mom, from where did you get these rocks?" And she said, "In the basement." And my father said, "We don't have a basement." Well, there was a crawl space, and underneath the house was something called a foundation. And in Pendleton, Oregon, they didn't have concrete formed foundations. They were just rocks. And my mother was systematically disassembling the foundation of the house. So when my dad died in 2007, they had just celebrated their 60th anniversary. And the reason why I think they made it through 60 years is because my dad's reaction to that was he just started laughing. He started laughing. And together, my mom and my dad and all of us disassembled my mother's flower beds to put the house back together. Okay. Now, if you took this to its degree that I wanted you to, you would have imagined a house collapsing. Yeah? And it would collapse because the foundation would have no integrity. Conversely, when the foundation is strong, the house upon it is strong. So if our spiritual foundation has no integrity, it will collapse. No arguments we make with anybody, with our friends, neighbors, with people in the same political party or those in opposing political parties, none of them will be effective or make a difference in creating a world that works for everyone if our personal spiritual foundation has no integrity. On purpose, I wanted you to imagine my parents' house falling, because that's what happens in our lives, I dare say. While we move through the stuff that happens in the world, but we're not living upon the foundation of what's true for us. And what's true for us is we're in the presence of a mighty power. Act accordingly. Okay? The time for running through the world like our hair is on fire has passed. It's time for us to put on our big boy and big girl panties and be the thing itself. Be it. Foundation. Thought is creative. Maybe you've heard that before. Have any of you ever heard that thought is creative? However, all thought is creative, but not all thought is equal. So back in the early 90s, when Dr. Edward and I were in ministerial school together, back when everybody knew he was something special, when they knew he would go out in the world and create magic with an amazing accent that nobody can really tell where it's from. He says it's South Africa, but have you seen his birth certificate? How am I on time? Oh, I still have a couple minutes. 12. Not all thought is all thought is creative, but not all thought is equal. What Edward and I were learning, Edward Fulyoun and I were learning in ministerial school, was trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. See? All thought is like light, but light is mostly diffused unless it's lasered. See, there's diffused light and laser light. All thought is creative, is like diffused light. Yeah, it's there, but not necessarily powerful, strong, or directed. Trained thought is like lasered light. It's directive. It's directed. It is clear. There's a great illustration of this in the world in which I live, the world of Harry Potter. Any of you ever heard of Harry Potter? Some of you in Sonoma County really like J.K. Rowling right now. Those of you who don't know, you don't need to go digging, don't know. J.K. Rowling writes in the first book of the Harry Potter series, she writes about a boy who's a lot like you and a lot like me. He doesn't know who he is. He lives in a cupboard under the stairs, and he's at the mercy of some very mean and nasty and unkind people. But when he's angry or upset, odd things happen. See? When he's angry or upset, the sweater that he doesn't want to wear, that his aunt is trying to shove over his head, the sweater keeps shrinking and shrinking and shrinking and shrinking until it's a tiny little sweater. When Harry is angry or upset, like getting the haircut he doesn't want to get, by the time his aunt has driven him back to the house from the barber, his hair has grown back to the way that it was. When Harry is angry or upset being chased by the bullies on the playground, he suddenly finds himself on the roof of the school looking down on the perpetrators, wondering how that happened. When Harry is angry or upset being bullied by his cousin Dudley at the zoo, suddenly Dudley finds himself on the other side of the plate glass window in the pen where the snakes are, and nobody knows how this happens. Well, have you ever heard of something called the Bible? That was a question. You are quick learners. I can see why Dr. Edward wants to hang out here. And there is a book I heard called Job. I've never read the whole book of Job myself. I don't need to because I got what I needed out of it. That which I feared most has come upon me. Because when we're afraid, there's passion and enthusiasm about life. So when we're afraid, we are powerfully creating. We're taking diffused light and making it lasered. And it's not even trained thought. That's untrained thought based upon fear. Now, when you get to the end of the Harry Potter series, 7 books and like 14,000 pages later, what you've got is a Harry using exactly the same power, but he knows how to use it now. And he creates a world of mystical, magical, amazing workability for many people. And he takes a stand for life. Trained thought is more powerful than untrained thought. It helps us to keep our spiritual foundation in integrity so that we can thin slice clearly and quickly, free from our biases and our judgments. That leads us to the physical body is a necessary vehicle for consciousness. It says it in the Science of Mind text. It's in print. The physical body. But I dare say most of us have nothing nice to say, or rarely have something nice to say about our bodies. We have a lot of complaints about them, or complaints about how somebody else did our bodies wrong, or complaints about how hard it is or how difficult it is to fill in the blank. But you are not just a set of brain wave activity. You are not just a pattern of thinking. Your world is not happening in here. Your world is happening out here. And part of our spiritual practice can be using our physical bodies to create the consciousness that we want to have, that is creating that foundation, helping us to laser our thinking and thin slice as we move through the world very quickly, assessing information, your physical body. But most of us don't do that. Let me just take a poll. How many of you have knowledge? You know of at least one way to lose weight. Show of hands. Please keep your hands up. Everybody look around. So there's somebody who knows at least one way. They've read about it. Okay, thank you. Put your hands down. Thanks for participating. 2, since we're the second service, we're a community of people who love, trust, and admire one another. How many of you have at least 1 gram of fat you'd like to lose? Please raise your hand and look. Everybody look around. So see, there we have a desire and we have knowledge and no action. That's a problem. Can you guys get that? That's a problem. Knowing how a push-up works and not doing the push-up does not get you results. Not knowing how a push-up works and doing the push-up gets you results. We don't need more knowledge. I dare say we need more application. I've heard it said that most of us are overread and underdone. I just want to understand a little more. Well, you don't need to understand it. We don't need to understand it. I've spent close to 30 years trying to understand it, and learning Spanish has helped me understand God more than ever, because I'm really getting that I can't understand Spanish, I just have to get it. I can't understand God, I just have to get it. I can't understand how to have a strong foundation in the presence of a world that doesn't appear to be working for everyone. I don't understand it. I don't need to understand it. Get it. You don't have to understand who you are. Get it. And one of the best ways to get it is to be in it, to be active. So Dr. Frank Adair is a psychiatrist who has offices in San Jose and on the peninsula in Redwood City. And he's the first person, but not the last, who I've heard say he will not take on any new clients who are suffering from depression or disenfranchisement. He will take on no new clients unless that client is immediately involved in a rigorous exercise program. He will not take on any clients who have any sort of depression whatsoever if they are not immediately involved in a rigorous exercise program. Because exercise leads us to create endorphins and lupins and munchkins and magic. But I dare say a lot of us do suffer from some sort of depression on some level and in some measure. And the solution is not thinking our way out of it, but getting in your physical body, like using it. And it's funny, when you start using it, something begins to happen. Some unavoidable happiness, even if the happiness is just that, thank God that's over. I can tell you are my people. I love you. I want to kiss you full on the lips. Is that Dr. Kim? You know, if Dr. Edward isn't a big enough asset, Dr. Kim Kaiser, another one. Wow. You, Dr. Kim, helped me grow up. I remember I was some smart mouth. I still am, but now I know it. Back then I didn't think it. He called me on something. Like he pointed out something to which before I had been blind. And you don't even know this, but that day that you pointed it out in your inimitable Buddhist monk kind of way, I saw something in me that was not the way I wanted to move through the world. And it altered the San Jose Center for Spiritual Living. And it altered my world, my relationships, my friends. You have no idea what an impact you're making just by being who you are. Dr. Kim is a great example of that. And plus he's the smartest man in the world because he chose Joyce to be his wife. That's an unstoppable pair. So, we don't need more knowledge. I don't think we need more knowledge. we maybe keep taking on more knowledge because it's in alignment with the deeper level penetration of who we are. But I really think that we could probably use at this time in the world more application. The world does not need more angry people. There's a power for good in the universe greater than you are. And not only can you use it, you're using it all the time. How will you use it? That's the question. And if you don't know how to use it, get into this physical body. Use your physical body. You'll find that consciousness is created in the use of your physical body that causes you to learn to take diffused light and laser it, which really makes the foundation upon which your spiritual house sits very strong in integrity and allows you to thin slice quickly whether or not you want to take on something or not take on something. So I'd like to close this with a brief spiritual mind treatment. If you are a licensed prayer practitioner at this organization or any other, would you stand just right where you are? Thank you. But I want to use you right now. So no, don't sit down. Don't sit down, Jennifer woman. No. I want you to take a stand with me. Now look around the people who are around you. Z.
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, Reverend David.
I love you. I love you. She's amazing too. Look at the people around you, and what I'm asking you to do is literally take a stand for those people. You're going to take a stand for those people in a prayerful way, knowing what you know. If you're willing, let me see the palm of your right hand. Excellent. I love it. You're all participants. So, every one of you who is a non-licensed prayer practitioner, stand with them. And if you are willing to take a stand in Sonoma County, in any other county around here, in Northern California, the United States, North America, planet Earth, can I see the palm of your right hand? This is remarkably similar to an oath that some people take. Some of you hands. May we be the thing itself in such a way that the world gets it, that the world is aware that there is a power for good greater in the universe, and we're using it right now. And if this resonates with you in any way, please anchor it with me by saying, and so it is. Thank you very much.